Hey, I'm Greg.
And I'm Jazz.
And we're making this video to share our experience and our story with Covid-19, the coronavirus.
Now to growing concerns about the deadly coronavirus officially hitting the U.S.
There are more coronavirus cases here in Michigan.
In fact, today the state reported another surge in cases, with Detroit continuing to lead the case count.
It started March 12th, which was a Thursday. I woke up that morning to get ready for work. Kind of had a headache. I felt a little tired. I was kind of cold feeling, but I just kept going anyway. I was getting ready to leave for work. I always, kiss my wife goodbye. And I told her, I'm not feeling really well. She's like, you don't have the coronavirus.
Yeah, I was like,
you don't have
the coronavirus.
Right.
You don't feel good. Why don't you stay home?
She's like, you should take your temperature because you feel warm. So when I got the thermometer, took my temperature, it was 100.4. She's like, you got a fever. And I'm like, okay, but I'm well enough to go to work. So I started driving to work, and I make it about 5 minutes into my drive, and I'm like coughing. I'm coughing up mucus though, like enough for me to open the door and like try to spit it out. And I get about another 5 minutes away, and I'm just feeling really bad. So I turned around, went back home. So when the doctor's office opened, I called them and went over my symptoms, and they were like, you don't have the coronavirus. Don't worry, you just have the flu. We're going to get you a prescription. We'll have, the doctor call you. So he called me, gave me a prescription for Tamiflu. The next day, which was Friday, my boss called me and told me that I should quarantine myself for 14 days just in case I had the coronavirus, which I'm like, what? Yeah. That's Friday the 13th. Saturday goes, Sunday goes, and I'm just like not feeling well. Fast forward to Monday, I just felt like death. Like I felt horrible. That was like the worst day. Mm-hmm. And I said, I think I need to go to the hospital. I called the doctor's office.
I said, I think you need to go to the hospital. Matter of fact, I was like, I'm taking you to the hospital.
Yeah, you did. So, went to the hospital. They didn't test me for coronavirus, but they did test me for the flu and for like respiratory infection. Both of those tests came back negative. In my mind, I felt like I had it at that point because I'm like, well, if I don't have the flu, then why the heck am I like feeling like dead? You know. Monday, March 16th, go to the hospital, find out I'm dehydrated. They give me fluids. I come back home feeling amazing. Fast forward to Wednesday night, which was March 18th. I go up the stairs, and by the time I get to the top of the stairs, I'm like winded. I get in the shower, the hot water, like the steam from the hot water and the steam that was in the bathroom, I felt like I couldn't even breathe. So I like swung open the shower door really fast in order to breathe. Like I felt like I was about to suffocate. The next day, Thursday, March 19th, exactly 1 week from when I first started feeling my symptoms, I go through my work day, still working from home. My wife gives me a steam treatment because we have been reading on the internet that coronavirus stays in your nose. You should boil hot water and breathe in steam with a towel over your head to like burn it out. Mm-hmm. Do not do that. Maybe 30 minutes later, I'm laying on the couch and the doctor's office calls to ask if I wanted a virtual appointment. I'm like, I don't want a virtual appointment. I don't want anything from you. When this is over, I'm getting a new doctor. About 30 seconds later, I'm like, I think you need to call back because I can't breathe. like I could not breathe, like to the point where I couldn't even have a full conversation. Mm-hmm. She calls back and they're like, well, we're going to have the doctor call you. And I'm like, okay. In the meantime, we need to go to the hospital. The doctor called back. And I answered the phone, and I didn't even have enough breath to explain to him what I was feeling. I just gave her the phone. And immediately he was like, you need to go to the emergency room right away. I'm gonna call them and let them know you're on your way. We drive to the hospital. We pull up at the emergency room door. The way I felt, I didn't know if that would actually be the last time I saw her again or not. We said I love you and everything else. I couldn't really like hug her. I was just trying to get in the hospital. I walk from the car to the door. I didn't even hardly have enough breath to say, I can't breathe. They checked me in, and within 5 minutes, I was in a patient room in the emergency department. They hooked me up to 2 IVs. They immediately put oxygen in my nose. They took blood, they ran tests, they tested me immediately for COVID-19. The oxygen immediately made me feel better, like I felt like I could breathe again. When the doctors and the real nurse came in, they had on almost like spacesuits. It was like I'm the infected person and they're trying to protect themselves from me. And that was the first moment of me kind of dealing with mortality or the possibility of death, because I made a video. I was singing this song by Erica Campbell called All I Need Is You. All I need is you. All I need is you. Ooh. All I need is you. Oh my God. All I need is you. All I need is you. Ooh. All I need is you. Oh my God. And then I just left a message, like I was just recording a message for my wife and my kids and my family, because I didn't honestly know if I was going to make it. Like, I didn't know what was going to happen. Like, I kind of like settled into it. And then they took me upstairs, put me in a patient room. They gave me Plaquenil, the malaria drug. Friday, March 20th, throughout the day, they keep coming in, turning up the oxygen a little bit. I can tell. They keep turning up the oxygen a little bit more. This lady comes in, puts this mask over my mouth, like this big, and it's like blasting air to the point where I'm almost like trying to breathe with this mask. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? She's like, oh, we just have to change your mask, and leaves out of the room. I'm like, what? The nurse came back in and she's like, oh, we're getting ready to take you down to ICU in case you have to be intubated, which is put on a ventilator. And I'm like, what? They basically told me that I was one step away from being ventilated because my lungs weren't accepting any of the oxygen that they were putting through my nose. I started like panicking. That was the second time I kind of dealt with mortality and death, because I felt like it was real. Like, it was when I was in emergency department the day before, it felt like I didn't know. This day, it felt like it's going to happen. So I started praying. I just started praying and just talking to God and basically repenting, because I just wanted to make sure that like my soul was right with God. I didn't know if I was going to live, literally. And I called my wife, told her what was going on.
And I immediately got on the calls and the texts with my family, my church, and I'm like, I really need your prayers, because him getting out of that car and telling me that he was going to go on a ventilator. Like, I didn't know if he was going to make it. In my mind, I was almost like preparing for a funeral, because I didn't even know if he was coming back. Sorry.
Oh, let me get you some.
Okay. Sorry, yeah, I just didn't know if I was going to see him alive again. And I had just got on my knees and just like really screamed out to the Lord, like, oh God, please save my husband and like fix this, because you know, you just don't ever expect it to be your person. Yeah, that was pretty bad.
After I called her, like we prayed, we got off the phone, they brought the bed down from ICU. By the time I walked from this bed, the bed I was in, to the ICU bed that was right outside the door, I couldn't even breathe. I was coughing. The nurses in ICU were like angels. They hooked everything up, and the lady said, oh shoot, I forgot his mask upstairs, like the oxygen mask. They said, oh, don't worry about it, we're just gonna try it with this one. And they put a regular one in my nose again and turned on the oxygen. And from that moment, my oxygen started improving just like that. It just started improving. They never put that thing on my face. They never had to ventilate me. And I know that is God. Like, there is nothing you can tell me. I didn't know it was gonna start improving. So at that moment, I just broke down in tears. They literally had these giant, like these suits and these giant things on, but they were hugging me and telling me it was gonna be okay. Another thing that was happening was that the oxygen in the ICU unit was hydrated, but it was with cold distilled waters. But I said that to say, they specifically said, sorry, we can't give you the heated one, because if you put the humidified oxygen into your nose, that makes a respiratory infection thing worse. At that moment, I realized I was making my own situation worse by doing the steam treatments at home. Sunday morning, they came in and actually told me my test was positive, which they told her to get tested immediately. So she got tested on Monday. The 3 nights that I was there, I could hear patients dying. The lady across like the hall, I can see her across the way. She gets out of the bed and is banging on the windows and the glass because she can't breathe. I felt like I was losing my mind. By this point, they had got my oxygen levels down from a level 15, which is the highest amount of oxygen you can give a person, to a level 2. The nurse came back at like 6 o'clock in the morning. She came in and I'm like, I have to go. I have to get out of here. I don't think I need this oxygen like that anymore, because like I didn't need anything else at that point. All of my other symptoms are gone. My fever finally broke. So she's like, we're gonna work on getting you out of here. I'm gonna work on it. And so before she left the room, she's like, I'm gonna take you off of oxygen support and see, how you do. So she took me off of the oxygen support. The doctors came in to see me, the respiratory doctor, pulmonary doctor, sent me home with a prescription for azithromycin for 5 days. I took a video literally of the room right before I left, being in the ICU room. Like, it was crazy. And as I was leaving, the doctors and nurses were literally in tears, and they were crying and they were clapping and they were giving me like air hugs because they couldn't get too close. They were literally like, you are a miracle. You are the first person and the only person to come into our ICU unit because of COVID-19 and actually get discharged and actually make it out of this. And that was just like such a blessing. Like, to hear that was like, she was like, my nurse and the doctors were like, you are a miracle. You have a purpose for your life. You are a miracle. And everyone is telling me this. And so she rolled me downstairs and she was crying when she took me outside to the car. And when I got in the car, it was just amazing. It was amazing. And when I got home, like the fresh air to be outside and to be able to breathe on my own again. From the last time I was outside, I didn't even know if I was coming back to my house. It was insane. Like, I just was like thanking God. And I literally pulled out a picture just to take a picture of that moment because I was so grateful to God to just allow me to even breathe again. And when I walked in the house, this song was playing by James Fortune. And the song is like, let your power fall when your name is called, prove the doubters wrong. And then it's like, it's basically saying,
all my friends,
so I can tell all my friends that you have won again. And that song was playing. I literally like fell to my knees in tears, just thanking God to be able to come back in my own house again, because I didn't even know when I left if that was going to be the last time I ever even seen this house. Like, I just I was just like so grateful and thankful to God for allowing me to just be alive. Like if you have never had a near-death experience, you probably won't understand what I'm talking about, but I'm just like, it was just an amazing thing to be back home and know that the reason why I was there is because of God. It was interesting to hear her perspective of what it was like, because she was here in our home that we built with our family by herself the whole time, not knowing even what was going on with me in the hospital, because they weren't even calling her to let her know every single step of the way, everything that was happening. But now I'm gonna let her tell her perspective of like how it was to be here and her experience with it.
Yeah, so when he went to the hospital and they said that they were going to keep him, I wasn't really surprised that they were keeping him because he was suffering like really bad. So the first night wasn't so bad. It was different, like sleeping in the bed alone, because first of all, our children weren't here, because on Monday when I took him to the hospital the first time, my mother-in-law came and picked the kids up while we were at the hospital, because we were thinking at that time that he just had the flu. So nobody was thinking like, oh, they could be carriers of something, you know. We wasn't like thinking that far. I just prayed, and you know, I talked to him that night, and he let me know that, you know, he was okay. He was very winded most of the time, and talking would make him tired. So I didn't even really get to talk to him a lot for the first like 3 or 4 days when he was there, because he would be so tired. As the days went on, like he could text me and let me know what was going on, where his oxygen levels and things like that were. But it was just still like not a whole lot of information. So what I ended up doing, because I couldn't go to the hospital, you know, I couldn't go inside, I ended up calling the hospital and talking to a nurse on that floor. And I'm like, you know, can someone please give me information? Because first of all, he can't even really talk that much. So I'm on this end, like really not even knowing a lot about what's going on at the hospital. And like that can be really scary when you have somebody in the hospital for a disease that people have been dying of, and you don't even know what's going on with your person. So here at home, I start to feel like mainly at nighttime, like tightness in my chest and crackling or gargling, feeling like in your lungs, you can feel that. So I started having that. My aunt and a friend had sent me this video on Facebook, and it talked about spraying your face. You get a water bottle, you spray your face with like cool water, and then you hold the blow dryer right here, and then you like let the dry heat go up your nose. I did that for about 2 or 3 days straight, and then you do some deep breathing, like, and then you hold it for 10 seconds and you blow it out your mouth. And so doing that, I did begin to feel better. So I did that for like a couple of days after he left, because honestly, I didn't even have any symptoms until a couple of days after he left. The doctor who was working on him at that time called me to let me know that he had tested positive for the virus and that I should go get tested. So I called our family doctor to let them know that I was gonna go and, you know, go get tested, if he could call the hospital, because like a lot of times the hospital, they were saying you can't come to get tested unless your doctor sends you. He said, you know, you should go in, I'll call and tell the hospital that you're coming. And so I ended up going in. They tested me for the flu first, of course, and I tested negative for the flu. So they put me in a room, and I was there for like maybe 2 hours. They tested me for COVID. They never took like blood or anything like that. They just tested me for COVID. And they sent me home. And I came home, and it was almost like once they tested me, then I started to have like little symptoms come in. A couple of days after I tested for COVID, he came home on that Wednesday. So our instructions for that time when he came home, because I hadn't gotten my results back yet, he was tested positive. So we were told that he needed to be quarantined and like on a separate floor if possible. So he was upstairs. He needed to have his own room and his own bathroom. And I stayed on the main floor, and I would cook and bring him his food on a tray and like set it outside the door. And I had made like this homemade mask with underwear. He's like, what is that on your face? So I had made a mask, and then I had some gloves, and I would bring his food up and put it on the doorstep of the room. And he's so aggravated. He would like bark to scare me back down the steps, because I was literally scared like to come close to the door, because if I didn't have it, I didn't want to catch it. I wanted him to heal up and, you know.
But I already knew that you had it because we had been sleeping in the same bed for a whole week. Like, there's no way you don't have it.
And the night before, we had been sleeping in
okay.
bed.
So,
No,
just
kidding.
like, you know you have it. There's no way.
Well,
you don't
I didn't
have it.
know. So Thursday morning, one of the nurses from the hospital called me and gave me my test results and said that you tested positive. So I'm like, okay. So she was like, well, do you have any questions? I'm like, yeah, one question is, since we both have it, like, do we still have to stay on
Isolated
separate
from each other.
floors? And so she's like, no, you guys are good. I mean, you both have it. You just have to stay quarantined in your house for 14 days from other people. So then after that, it was
so funny because it's like nobody probably ever was more excited about testing positive for the coronavirus than us. When she tested positive, we found out that we could be together. And I'm like, it was like prison.
Yeah,
like
because
being apart. I couldn't even
yeah.
sleep well like that first night.
Oh, I didn't. So
it was horrible.
That night when he first came home, he was upstairs and I was downstairs. And you know how like you being a mother, you listen out for your babies, you know. So he's upstairs. I didn't hear him move like not once. And I'm like laying there listening, because I'm like, oh God, please bless him to be okay, because he wasn't on his oxygen anymore. I just prayed and I'm like, Lord, please make him like cough or something so I'll know that he's okay. And it was so funny, like 15 minutes later, he cleared his throat and I'm like, oh, okay. And then I was able to go to sleep. So that was, it was,
praying that I cough.
no, I just wanted to make sure he was okay. It was like, I'm telling you, like, that's a scary thing. It's a scary thing because like the whole time you're just hoping and praying like that you live. Like that's your prayer. And I know like for me, my symptoms were a lot different from his. I had a headache and dizziness, and I felt the respiratory part not as bad as his, but when I would feel like my chest tightening up and not really able to breathe good, I would start to do the breathing exercises because he was telling me that somebody had told him that. So it was almost like stuff that he went through. I didn't have to go through all of it. Yeah. Thank God.
And because I was in the hospital and they gave me the azithromycin Z-Pack antibiotic, I had her call our doctor and tell him to give her a prescription for it before she, it got worse and like got to the point where it was like full-blown pneumonia.
Yeah.
Because I was just like, the thought of her being in the hospital was like, I couldn't take it.
What I will say also is that was actually scary too, because taking the Z-Pack, some of the side effects are like really intense. Yeah. Like one of the side effects was like you get headaches and dizziness and you can faint. I didn't faint, thank God, but I did have the headaches and dizziness, and the headaches that I had before were almost like mega headaches now with the Z. Oh, my heart. The heart racing was crazy. And I would just have to like just pray and just like calm down, like try to, take deep breaths and just like really rest. Rest is really essential when it comes to this COVID thing. Resting your body and your mind. And if you don't pray, I recommend it.
I'm just so thankful for our family.
Thankful, so thankful.
The first people at the top of the list is my brother and my sister.
They were such a blessing.
They were amazing. Our kids ended up over there from my mom's house, and they took them in, and they were in school online, and they were there for almost a month. And they never asked for anything. They just checked on us and made sure we were okay. And, also, I'm thankful for our other family who called and texted and prayed and checked on us every single day. And I'm also thankful for my work family. They were absolutely amazing. I've had people,
supportive.
They're so supportive. They're praying. You can't even ask for a better community of people to, really embrace you and look out for you. So we posted a Q&A on our social media, and some of the stuff was funny. Some people were just supportive. So I want to read the ones that were actual questions. So one question was, how were your lungs? They were fine in the beginning, and it did feel like that crackling thing when I would breathe in at nighttime, which was kind of the first indication that was happening, and I was kind of monitoring a shortness of breath, but it was almost like it came pretty sudden. So if, I just told you the story so you understand. Someone asked, when did you have it? My first symptoms started March 12th, which I have no idea who I came in contact with. But I literally got out of the hospital on March 25th. So that's about a 2-week period. One question is, did you think about having some super sex at your weakest point?
So crazy.
No. And which is funny because I felt like that entire 2-week period, I had zero sex drive. I was not thinking about sex at all. I don't know if that's a thing for when you have a life and death situation or a near death experience, but it wasn't for me.
Me either.
At your worst point, what were some things you thought about or put into perspective? I definitely thought about my family and how important appreciating breath is. Because when something is taken away from you, you really realize how important it is and how amazing it is to have it when you have it. So that was something I definitely put into perspective. And being around my family. I had no one there, and my worst thought was if I die in here, I'm gonna die by myself. No one is going to be here.
Right.
None of my family.
And right now, you can't even have funerals and stuff like that.
It's
so
just
people are
immediate burial or immediate
and,
cremation.
Yeah.
From what I heard. So.
My whole thing was just repenting and being at peace with God.
Yep.
And just thinking about my husband and my kids and my family. And this has just really shown me how important family is. And I just prayed and I asked the Lord, help me that when this is all over, that we remember what it was like to not be able to see our people, so that you'll stay appreciative when you are able to see them again.
Another question is, can you get reinfected? We don't know for sure because we've heard mixed stories. I don't personally believe so, but I also did hear that in China there were people who had it once and then they tested, again and had it again. It started over for them, but I'm not sure what's real and what's not. We just protect ourselves. That's our story. We hope that this can encourage someone that, if you're going through it, that, to pray. If you are feeling short of breath severely, definitely get to the hospital. Don't wait. Just protect yourself and your families. Be safe out there. And we really appreciate you guys if you made this far in the video. We pray that everybody stays safe.
And if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below.
Yeah.
Because we'll definitely answer any questions that we can. So feel free to leave comments and questions. And
definitely like the video if you appreciate it.
And please share. Share to anybody that can use this video, because there's a lot of people who have been affected by this and really haven't known what to do.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys.
Bye.
Bye.